Williams Mantell. He was the voice that millions of Americans looked for 17 uninterrupted years when the world seemed to make the handle on their own. The host of one of the most prestigious daytime TV shows ever. A distinguished U.S. Navy officer who spent 22 years in service to his nation. A man whose name came to represent integrity, selflessness, and the unwavering and willingness to balance. The Mantell Williams Show reached over 20 million households in 170 countries at its height, making him one of the most famous faces on American television and one of the most trusted voices in a truth-seeking generation. However, there is a tragic rather than spectacular tale hidden behind that heritage. There was a battlefield that no more camera ever caught behind the mission and the words, behind the shiny clothes and the studio lights. Unspoken pain broke a child's heart. Marriages that failed due to the overwhelming pressure of celebrity. A body deceived by an illness so ruthless that it threatened to take everything from him. His voice, the way he moved, and the identity he had worked so hard to create. And the financial collapse so total that, year by year, dollar by dollar, the empire he had built was taken away. Mantell Williams is a live example of how the biggest struggles are never fought on a stage but rather in secret, in solitude, and at the times when there is no more applause. In honor of a man who dedicated his voice and almost his body so that others would never have to endure suffering in silence. Please leave a like if Mantell Williams has ever uttered that truth that came to you just when you needed it most. The start of this mythology was characterized by the icy discipline of a culture that required everything and delivered virtually little in return, which is a quietly devastating truth. On July 3 RD 1956, Mantell Brian Anthony Williams was born in Baltimore, Maryland, a contradictory city with a calm pride at its heart and a harsh exterior. A country where dignity was not inherited through a surname, but rather something you had to acquire via hard work and quiet. His father, Herman Williams, was a stern disciplinarian who worked for the city of Baltimore and eventually ascended to the position of fire chief. He was a guy from a different period. Herman carried power in the same manner that some men carry religion as a rule rather than a consolation. Although it was carefully rationed and weighed against expectations, warmth was still present in the home. Excellence was not valued in Herman's environment. It was just necessary. Anything less required discussion. Furthermore, the discussions were seldom kind. Marjorie Williams, his mother, showed him a different type of affection. Quieter and steadier, they was during the early hours of the day when a child was left alone with his thoughts after discipline had completed its task. She served as the family's emotional pillar, the one who realized a boy was capable of carrying more than he displayed. However, Mantell was unable to completely escape the pressure that was like a second tenant in that Baltimore house despite her kindness. Music Mantell, the second of 4 children, was invisible and unwavering. And he realized early on that his role in the family demanded performance. The everyday performance of effort, of rising before doubt could settle, of going forward before reluctance could take root, is not performance in the theatrical sense. School was not a safe haven. It was a different arena. Despite not being the most well-known student in the room, he was unwaveringly present. The kind of boy whose unwavering resolve made up for his uncertainties. By the time he was in his early teens, Mantell had already acquired a trait that would characterize every subsequent chapter, an almost aggressive drive to prove himself, not to other people specifically, but to the inner voice that asked if he was sufficient. He never completely lost that voice, which was recognizable to kids who grew up in the shadow of tremendous expectations. It merely altered the languages music spoke in the more difficult currencies of adulthood, such as status, ratings, income, and the recognition, rather than in the words of a father silence. Mantell initially came into contact with the organization that would influence his life for the following 20 years while he was in high school. He attended the United States Naval Academy Preparatory School after being drawn by a mix of pragmatism and purpose. He later enrolled in the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. In his class, he wasn't the most naturally talented applicant. However, he made up for his lack of ease with endurance. He overcame every social, intellectual, and the physical obstacle the academy put in the way of a young black man attending a school that was still getting used to the America it purported to represent. After earning a general engineering degree in 1980 and being commissioned as an officer in the USMC, he later transferred to the Navy, where he would serve for 22 years. He would achieve a stellar record during those years, certified as a cryptologist, climbing through a system that did not always open its doors without opposition, and becoming one of the first black officers to serve in multiple specialized roles, music. Butcher was just the youngster from Baltimore before any of that could be identified. Before the medals, the missions, or the TV producer would look at this man and see something indisputable. The discipline of his boyhood had not destroyed him. And the more amount of pressure had yet to shatter the seeds of a resistance that were already bearing music in the specific set of his jaw, and it as I lined up behind his eyes. He was drafted by it. The man he would eventually stand in front of 20 million viewers without flinching was already being written somewhere in the quiet of those early years. Most men wouldn't dare to go from being a decorated Navy officer to a national television show. There is more than just a professional debate between those two worlds, one based on rank and the attack, the other on charisma and the ratings. It's existential. Not only did Montel Williams need guts to cross it, but he also needed a certain kind of recklessness that only a man with nothing left to prove could afford. Montel started giving public speeches about drug awareness and the at-risk adolescence in 1989, when he was still a member of the Navy. A case based on the sincere fear of a man who had witnessed too many young lives and before they had really started, rather than political calculation. He received invitations to give speeches at community centers, schools, and finally military bases. Additionally, what viewers saw was uncommon for television. A man who possessed both the emotional directness of someone who had truly bled for what he believed in, and the physical authority of a decorated officer. As is always the case when somebody genuine walks into a room full of the practiced, word spread. After witnessing Montel speak to an auditorium in 1991, a Paramount Television executive allegedly turned to a colleague with one observation. That man doesn't act with sincerity. He just has it. Conversations turned into meetings in a matter of months. Meetings had evolved into pilots. Additionally, the Montel Williams Show debuted nationally in the fall of 1991. The reaction was not just favorable. It was enlightening. Montel arrived with something almost bewildering in its simplicity at a time when daytime television was full of confrontation with hosts who traded in wrath and the spectacle. He paid attention. He posed a challenge without being degrading. Stories that the rest of the industry was happy to take advantage of were given room by him. Children lost in systems meant to ignore them, families in peril, and the veterans. Montel moved them to the middle of the space and he wouldn't allow the camera to treat them as amusement. Later on, he acknowledged using the candor that would eventually become his signature. He had no more intention of becoming a talk show presenter. He was attempting to complete discussions that no one else was willing to initiate. That integrity exploded subtly but irrevocably when the Montel Williams Show won its first daytime Emmy in the mid-1990s. It shocked the industry, which was still debating whether to take him seriously. Although he would later be nominated for more Emmys, the first one was particularly significant. It was more than a recognition of skill. The business was hesitantly acknowledging that Montel's work at that studio was not soft. It wasn't easy. It was extraordinary by any quantifiable standards. The clapping did not fully capture the intricacy of the breakthrough from Montel himself. He then acknowledged that the internal pressure increased rather than decreased as soon as the program was successful. In a subsequent interview, he said, "Winning gave me a bigger stage. However, a larger platform just means that more people will be sure to see your fall." The keen, almost prophetic awareness was a holdover from a childhood spent performing competently in front of an unforgiving father. The largest room imaginable was now given to the youngster who had learned to read the room before he could read the stillness. Andy realized that the task of maintaining it had only just begun with the instinctive aman molded by military discipline. His age was 35. He had spent over 10 years serving his country. Where silence had been the norm in the sector, he had raised his voice. Andy he had accomplished this by refusing, with a determination that Ferdinand defiance, to become someone other than himself. He on the platform. What it would cost him to preserve it was the question that remained, the question that always stays for men who reach this high can do so quickly. What came next was more than just a job. What happens when discipline, conviction, and the an almost irrational need for influence are given a national stage, and the urge to run was demonstrated over the course of 10 years. The Montel Williams Show created something unique in the American daytime television scene between 1991 and the late 1990s, a devoted viewership that had faith in both the show and its creator. Throughout the middle of the decade, ratings increased gradually, consistently placing the show among the nation's top-performing midday programs. The show reached an estimated 20 million households every episode during its peak, when it was broadcast in 170 countries. Figures that put Montel Williams at the pinnacle of successful talk show hosts, not just in the discourse. The program operated for 17 seasons in a row. 17 years of everyday production of visitors whose tales required more than a cozy chair and a camera. Of discussions that the rest of the industry chose to keep quiet because it was simpler, safer, and less expensive to do so. Veterans with wounds that no more one had taught the public to recognize were returning from battle. Families dealing with addiction lacked the vocabulary to express their experiences. A criminal justice system that was never created with the survival of young people in mind engulfed them. One by one, Montel presented them, refusing to let the credits roll until a true statement was made. The daytime Emmy for Outstanding Talk Show Host went to him. Throughout the course of the event, he received numerous nominations. He established Montel Media, a production firm that expanded his reach into development and distribution in addition to the studio. His work as a motivational speaker took him into university auditoriums, military installations, and boardrooms, a circuit that brought in a substantial amount of money and strengthened the brand he had established not by a well-thought-out plan, but by his unwavering commitment to being himself. Montel developed a public character that went beyond television. National magazines featured him on their covers. He was in demand as a pundit on social justice, veterans' rights, and military matters. He spoke about these subjects as a retired officer who had earned the right to speak after 22 years of service, not as a celebrity endorsing a cause. He gave testimony on veterans' health care before Congress. He advocated for laws. Instead of using his popularity to buy comfort, he used it to gain entrance to rooms where choices were made regarding individuals without any other representatives present. His rise in wealth paralleled his career. Montel Williams had an estimated net worth of several tens of millions of dollars by the late 1990s. His television contracts, speaking engagements, and the production partnerships had built the kind of financial structure that implied stability. The idea that what has been constructed is too strong to be disturbed is a common one among men who advance fast. That's how he lived. An apartment of significant size again the address in New York City that serves as the primary residence. A second residence in Los Angeles, tucked away amid the hills where the entertainment industry carries out its more subdued operations. A way of life that represented the calm confidence of a man who felt the ground beneath him had been earned and he would therefore hold, rather than excess for its own sake. And behind all of it the ratings, the Emmy Awards, the congressional testimony, the production deals, there was a discipline that the majority of viewers were never aware of. Regardless of the timetable, Montel was up before the city every morning. Exercise wasn't leisure, it was ritualistic. A holdover from the Navy Academy days when being physically prepared was essential rather than voluntary. He brought that attitude into civilian life with the same fervor that he had brought onto a ship, and it would eventually turn out to be more than just the habit, it was a lifesaver. The empire existed. The discipline was genuine. The conviction was genuine. However, beneath it all, something else was also quite real. moving silently and unannounced. Something that would emerge in the last year after decade and when it did, completely alter Montel Williams' conception of the meaning of his existence. The people closest to celebrity are subjected to a special kind of abuse, not on the celebrities themselves, who have at least selected their own, but on those who adore them from the sidelines, who live with the schedule, the cameras, and the insatiable public demand. And who are rewarded for their closeness with a presence that is constantly being borrowed by someone else and a loyalty that is constantly being divided. Montel Williams has 3 marriages. And that number tells the tale of a guy whose inner life moved at a speed and the intensity that the typical rhythms of marriage could not support, rather than one of moral failure. During his years of active military service, he married Rachel Webb for the first time in ke-1983. A relationship created in the unique closeness of a life still characterized by structure and purpose. Ashley and Maresewa got 2 children. However, the marriage collapsed before the decade was out because Montel's professional workload was expanding more quickly than the domestic one could keep up. Both sides kept the specifics confidential, treating each other with a dignity that the tabloids of the time hardly ever acknowledged. From 1990 to 1994, he was married to Grace Molly for the second time. A second generation of kids, a second effort to create stability in a life that was becoming less stable with each passing season. The program was becoming better. The timetable was getting longer. Something much less predictable now dominated the man who had previously been defined by the rigid requirements of military service. The needs of a network, the hunger of an audience, and the unique loneliness of being required by millions but genuinely unknown to nearly everyone. Later on, he confessed quietly, as if he had spent years coming to an honest realization. The people closest to me suffered as a result of my giving all to the platform. I'm not proud of that. He carried that with me. Those marriages did not break down due of harshness. It was absence, the more delicate and the damaging kind of desertion. The kind that occurs over 1,000 evenings when work comes first and the silence at the dinner table says all that was never spoken out, rather than in a single moment of betrayal. In 2002 music, he was married for the third time to Tara Fowler during a period of intense psychological turmoil. By that time, Montel had already been given the diagnosis that would completely change the rest of his life. Antara entered the chapter as a witness rather than a rescuer. One of the most difficult opponents she had ever encountered was a partner who decided to stand next to a man already negotiating the early stages of an illness. Before that marriage also came to an end, they would raise their daughter Winter Grace together for more than 10 years. The entire trajectory of Montel's personal life paints a picture of a guy whose capacity for love was never in doubt rather than one of negligence. Only his ability to be completely present within it. He was challenging to live with during regular hours due to the same intensity that made him exceptional on stage. The same motivation that created an empire over the course of 17 seasons of daily television left virtually little for the peaceful surroundings of home. Those who knew him well during that time remembered a man who was truly saddened by the gaps that had grown between him and the people he cared about the most. Montel never stopped caring. He just couldn't always stop long enough to show it. And in a marriage, stopping is everything, recalled a close associate. The platform had given him a voice that reached 20 million people. What it had quietly taken in the exchange was the simpler and the more irreplaceable gift of being unreservedly present for the few. Certain moments in a life when the body stops being a vehicle and becomes a verdict. From Montel Williams. That moment came in 1999 when a series of symptoms he had quietly endured for years finally forced themselves into a diagnosis that could no longer be postponed. He had trained himself through 2 decades of military discipline to absorb physical discomfort without complaining, but this was different. This was not fatigue. Rather, it was his nervous system sending a signal that the rest of him did not yet have the language to receive. After a battery of tasks that stretched across months of quiet, private music dread, the diagnosis arrived with a bluntness that medicine reserves for its most serious communications. Multiple sclerosis, a chronic progressive neurological disease in which the immune system turns against the myelin sheath protecting the nerves, disrupting and in some cases permanently suffering the communication between the brain and the body it is trying to govern. The callback symmetry was devastating in its precision. The same iron discipline that had carried Mantel through the Naval Academy through 22 years of service through 17 seasons of daily television production. The very physical and the mental unknowns that had been his most reliable weapon was now the quality being targeted by his own biology. The disease does not spare the strong. It does not negotiate with the determined. It simply advances on its own schedule by its own logic. Music indifferent to everything a man has achieved or endured. He later admitted with a particular steadiness of someone who has had years to find words for a moment that initially left him wordless. He sat in that doctor's office and he thought about every single person who had ever sat across from me on that stage and he told me their life had just been turned inside out. And then he understood for the first time. It was the gradual realization that the body he had trusted completely. The body he had pushed through every physical threshold, the military and the demands of daily television could construct, was no more longer entirely his to command. He went public with the diagnosis in 2000, making the announcement not from behind a shield of publicists and the carefully managed statements, but directly on his own program before his own audience. It was by any measure an active extraordinary courage. And it was also unmistakably the active man shaped by 22 years of a culture in which concealment of vulnerability was not merely habit but doctrine. To speak it aloud in public before 20 million people required him to override every instinct his formation had given him. That all that followed was catalogued not in a single revelation but across years of honest disclosure. His legs once instruments of military precision capable of the sustained physical demands of active naval service became the primary battleground. The mist attacked the nerve pathways governing sensation and the motor control from the waist down, producing a burning pain that Mantel described as feeling like walking barefoot across open flame. Present not occasionally but continuously, a permanent background frequency beneath every waking hour. His hands, Wick had once signed commissions and declassed the hands of guests whose stories they carried home with him, developed a tremor and the numbness that made the simplest physical tasks, writing, gripping, holding a tube without deliberate concentration, into daily negotiations with his own nervous system. His sleep already fractured by the demands production schedules and the psychological weight of a public life became a battlefield of its own. The disease produces a fatigue that is categorically different from tiredness, a neurological exhaustion that rest does not repair, that sleep does not dissolve, that sits at the base of every day like a tax collected before the morning has even begun. And beneath all of it, threading through every physical symptom with a cruelty of its own, was the psychological weight of uncertainty. Multiple sclerosis does not announce its next move. The man who had once taught others how to survive was now the one who had to learn it for himself. There is a certain kind of rebuilding that has nothing to do with recovery in the clinical sense. It is not a restoration of what was lost because some things, like a marriage, 10 years of physical certainty, or the quiet confidence of a body that simply obeys, can only be replaced by something different. Wait, if a man is honest enough to receive it, turns out to be more durable than what it replaced. From Mantel Williams, the rebuilding came gradually, imperfectly, and through the unique alchemy of those who chose to stay. Ashley Andy married from his first marriage, the 2 children from his second, and his daughter Winter Grace, born into the years already shadowed by the misdiagnosis. Each of them represented a claim on his future that the disease could threaten but could not dissolve. He later confessed with the unguarded honesty that had always been his most recognizable quality. When he thought about what the disease could take from me, he kept coming back to the same thing. Not the show, not the career, my kids. The thought of not being present for them. That was the only thing that genuinely frightened me. The man who had once given everything to a platform now began the slow, deliberate work of giving something to the people who had never asked for a platform, only for him. That reorientation expressed itself most visibly through advocacy. In 2002, Montel established the Montel William Smith Foundation, channeling the currency of his public profile into research funding, patient support program, and the systematic dismantling of the silence that surrounded the disease in communities that could least afford to suffer it quietly. He raised millions. He was not going to whisper about this. He acknowledged music in one of his most direct public remarks. Whispering is how things stay broken. He testified before Congress not for the first time, but now with a different kind of authoritative amen, speaking not about others but about the interior of his own life. He became, in the language of the cause he had adopted, not merely a spokesman but a symbol, not a celebrity who had lent his name to a worthy organization, but a man who had put his diagnosis at the center of his public persona. It was clear that he was being called back to his early instincts. In the most unwelcome of circumstances, the Baltimore lad, who had compensated for uncertainty with unrelenting forward motion, had discovered his most significant direction to date. After serving a purpose greater than himself for 20 years, the naval officer had found a new mission that called for the hierarchy and the more difficult courage of radical transparency rather than physical stamina. Throughout those years, his bond with his kids grew in ways that the show's fast-paced peak seasons had not allowed. Reading a book became a form of physical therapy that was framed as parenthood. Production schedules had previously squeezed out conversations, but now there was space for them because he had finally slowed down enough to inhabit the us rather than just travel through them not voluntarily, but out of necessity. The man who used to command millions of viewers in a studio now judged his successes in a different way. A walk in the morning without help, a lengthy enough talk with Winter Grace to cover everything that needs to be said. A funding from a foundation that brought a researcher one step closer to a solution that might come too late for him, but not for the next person sitting in that same doctor's office and hearing that same cruel remark. That was the atonement, not a return to what had been a metamorphosis into something more subdued, methodical, and in the end, more authentic. At 68 years old in 2025, Montel Williams is not a holdover from a bygone era of television, but rather a man who has outlived every judgment ever made about him. The illness that first surfaced in 1999 hasn't gone away. It hasn't proposed a ceasefire. It is unaffected by his accomplishments, his advocacy, or the millions of dollars he has spent to put an end to it. Instead, it continues its plodding, unrelenting bargain with his neurological system, moving forward on his own schedule. Nevertheless, he still faces it every morning with the same determination that got him through the Naval Academy. 17 seasons of daily television, the ruins of marriages, and the public revelation of a diagnosis that would have silenced a lesser man. He moves forward to meet it, thoughtful, self-reliant, and disciplined. His estimated net worth is around $10 million. Which is much less than it was during the height of the Montel Williams show. This is due in part to the business of having lived fully and given generously, as well as the financial realities of maintaining both a chronic illness and a significant philanthropic organization. He still resides in New York City, the city that saw him ascend, stumble, and stubbornly refused to stay on the ground. Production deals and the speaking circuit earnings are no longer used to gauge his lifestyle. Instead, it is measured in the more subdued currencies of a man who has discovered what is valuable. Since its founding in 2002, his organization, the Montel Williams Smith Organization, has raised millions of dollars for patient advocacy and research. He continues to be one of the most well-known and reliable voices in the multiple sclerosis community, not because he was looking for that position, but rather because he was early enough and honest enough to fill it with his entire name and backstory. He has continued to be involved in veteran advocacy, making several appearances before Congress to advocate for better military health care and the treatment of service personnel, whose sacrifices the legislative process is constantly in danger of ignoring. He has never been satisfied to devote his name to this music, as he has to so many other things. He has continuously contributed his presence, his testimony, and the unique authority of a man who served 22 years, making it difficult for the folks on the other side of the table to ignore him. He discusses his house in public with a candidate still uncommon from an of his background and the generation. With the directness of someone who long ago concluded that the cost of honesty was always less than the cost of concealment. He has talked about the daily management of mid symptoms, the pain protocols, the exercise regimens, and the careful calibration of energy across a body that no more longer operates on his preferred terms. And in the midst of it all, the diminished financial architecture, the physical administration, the continuous advocacy, Sir is Eric, Ashley, Mercy, and the Winter Grace. A man's entire perception of what he is truly creating for whom is reoriented by the unique gravity of parenting. At 40, Montel Williams was a different person. The ratings phenomena is not him. The Emmy winner, the honored officer at the pinnacle of what appeared to be an endless career. He is something that is more challenging to attain and to maintain. He is a man who confronted his greatest fear. It was the loss of his own body's cooperation rather than failure, obscurity, or the breakdown of a public persona he had spent decades creating. He confronted it without recoiling, without going into silence, and without letting it become the last word about who he is. The foundation that carries his name and his mission into a future who might not live to see fully resolved is not Montel Williams' greatest legacy, nor are the 17 seasons, the Emmy, or the 2 decades of naval duty. The permission he gave is his greatest legacy.